If you've been diagnosed with Hashimoto's or hypothyroidism and you're doing everything right, but still not healing, there's a good chance the problem isn't your thyroid pill at all. It's 6 everyday habits that are quietly working against you. And most doctors will never mention a single one of them. Be honest, when was the last time you thought about your stomach acid? Most people assume digestion just happens in the background, no maintenance required. But here's what's actually going on. Research shows most people with autoimmune thyroid disease have low stomach acid, not high acid, which means proteins don't get broken down properly. Undigested protein fragments trigger the immune system to build more antibodies, the same antibodies that attack the thyroid. If you've ever been told you have acid reflux and put on an acid blocker, that's a red flag, because low stomach acid produces nearly identical symptoms, and suppressing the acid you already don't have enough of only deepens nutrient deficiencies like B12 and iron. Watch for fatigue after protein-heavy meals, a burning sensation that comes and goes, hair thinning, and stubborn low iron. Here's a simple place to start. Try a small glass of warm water with a teaspoon of lemon juice or apple cider vinegar about 10 minutes before protein-containing meals, and pay attention to whether digestion feels easier and energy improves afterward. The one exception: if you actually have ulcers or you're on certain medications, forcing more acid is dangerous, so check with a practitioner before going further than this simple step. But for most people, ignoring digestion is quietly fueling the exact antibody attack they're trying to stop, which brings us to habit number 2, because what you don't digest becomes food for the wrong bacteria. Be honest again, how many nights this week did you actually get more than 7 hours of sleep? Chronic sleep deprivation is one of the fastest ways scientists can artificially trigger adrenal dysfunction in a lab animal, and the same thing happens to you. One study on shift workers found they had a meaningfully higher risk of developing thyroid antibodies compared to people who kept regular sleeping hours. Here's the mechanism. Your adrenal glands run on a rhythm, pumping out cortisol high in the morning and low at night, and when sleep is inconsistent, that rhythm breaks down, which throws off the entire feedback loop between your brain and your thyroid. Watch for difficulty getting up in the morning even after a full night, salt cravings, feeling wired but exhausted, and needing caffeine just to function. The real-world consequence is that no amount of thyroid medication fully works if your adrenals are depleted. Some people even feel better on treatment initially, then slide right back to square one. The nuance here: it's not just quantity, it's timing. The hours before midnight appear to matter more for deep, restorative sleep than the hours after. So the actual fix is simple. Even if it's not easy, pick a bedtime before 10 p.m., protect it like an appointment you can't cancel, black out your room completely, and cut caffeine after midday so it isn't still circulating when you're trying to wind down. Consistency matters more here than any supplement ever will. Now let's talk about blood sugar, because this is one people wildly underestimate. Step 1. Notice if you get hangry, genuinely irritable, shaky, or foggy a few hours after eating. Step 2. Pay attention to whether that happens specifically after carbohydrate-heavy meals. Step 3. If it does, you're likely one of the roughly half of people with autoimmune thyroid disease who have real trouble tolerating carbs. Here's why it matters. A spike in blood sugar triggers an insulin surge, and that surge can crash your blood sugar right back down, and every one of those crashes is treated by your body as a stressor, adding fuel directly to the autoimmune fire. One study found that switching to a much lower carbohydrate ratio led to measurable drops in thyroid antibodies in just 3 weeks. Warning signs include energy crashes an hour after eating, sugar cravings, and mood swings tied suspiciously close to mealtimes. The caveat: this isn't about eliminating carbs entirely for everyone. Some people with elevated cortisol actually do worse on very low carb and need more, not less. The fix is pairing any carbohydrate with fat or protein and never letting a meal be carbs alone. If you're serious about actually reversing your symptoms instead of just managing them, hit subscribe now, because the next 3 habits are the ones almost nobody talks about, and they might be the biggest ones on this list. Here's a controversial one: exercise. Camp 1 says push through it, sweat it out, more cardio is always better. Camp 2 says rest completely and never break a sweat. Camp 3, The one backed by what we actually see in adrenal-depleted patients, says it depends entirely on what stage of adrenal dysfunction you're in. Strenuous exercise, even aggressive walking, has been shown to directly increase intestinal permeability, the exact gut barrier breakdown linked to autoimmune flares. One case that illustrates this: a woman doing 2 hours of daily walking to lose weight was actually in an advanced stage of adrenal depletion, and stopping that routine for just 1 month, replacing it with rest, led to weight loss without calorie counting. The resolution is simple. If you feel more depleted after a workout instead of energized, your adrenals aren't ready for that intensity yet, and gentler options like walking, stretching, or light strength work are the better call until they recover. Habit 5 is an everyday habit almost nobody questions: cooking, storing, and reheating food in plastic. Some researchers believe certain chemicals in plastics, like BPA, along with ingredients in many conventional personal care products, may act as endocrine disruptors, meaning they could interfere with the way hormones, including thyroid hormone, signal and function in the body. It's worth being clear that this connection is still debated and not settled science, and individual sensitivity seems to vary a lot from person to person. That said, plenty of people report feeling better after cutting back on exposure, and it costs nothing to try. Watch for symptoms that seem to worsen after switching to a new plastic container, receipt handling job, or scented product line, though this pattern is anecdotal rather than proven. The actionable fix is straightforward: swap plastic food storage for glass or stainless steel, avoid microwaving food in plastic, skip handling thermal receipts when you can, and look for paraben-free personal care products. None of this requires a total life overhaul, just small substitutions over time. And finally, habit 6. Assuming more of a good nutrient is always better, especially iodine. Iodine is essential for thyroid hormone production, but in autoimmune thyroid disease, excess iodine can actually generate oxidative damage inside thyroid cells, releasing molecules that switch on the very autoimmune process you're trying to shut off. Health authorities caution against exceeding 500 micrograms a day for the general population, and doses above 1,100 micrograms have been associated with thyroid dysfunction. But people with autoimmune thyroid disease often react at even lower amounts. Watch for a sudden worsening of symptoms after starting a new supplement, especially anything containing seaweed, kelp, or high-dose iodine. The one exception is genuine iodine deficiency, which is a different situation entirely and does require correction. This is about excess, not absence. So here's the truth. Your thyroid probably isn't broken beyond repair. It's being sabotaged by 6 habits happening completely outside the thyroid itself. Fix the digestion, protect the sleep, stabilize the blood sugar, match your exercise to your energy, reduce everyday chemical exposure, and stop assuming more supplements automatically means more healing. If you're serious about actually getting to the root cause instead of chasing symptoms forever, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next piece of the puzzle.